Space, the final frontier. Well, okay, not really. All right, take two. Here in the Mitten State, welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek, spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone.
We are back yet again on the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network with Code 47, your guide to Star Trek. This is episode 136. I am your humble servant, Trek Lord to West Michigan, Charlie Carden, here as always with my steady first officer, Lieutenant Commander in Starfleet International, Peter Stein. And he's working from the road. He's down in an undisclosed location in his runabout, doing the good work of Starfleet people everywhere. So, yeah, how are you today?
Doing all right.
Good deal. Awesome. Well, we have got an absolutely jammed show today. We have more news than we usually have. Some of it great, some of it not so good, unfortunately, as we talk about the passing of a Star Trek production legend. We then get into the beginning of Lower Decks, the final season. First two episodes, which were kind of a two-parter, unofficially, which we'll talk about. And then we get into the sixth season of Star Trek: The Next Generation, which very fond memories for me because that was it was my junior year in high school, which is nuts. Almost 30 years ago. Yeah, the 92, 93 season. So really looking forward to talking about that. But let's get things rolling after we do the necessary paying the bill segment, which I'm just kidding. It's a real pleasure to do this, to talk about the great folks over on our Secret Friends Unite Patreon. If you visit patreon.com/secretfriendsunite, you can try us out for 7 days for free and stay on board for as little as $2 a month. And what do you get for those $2, you might be asking? You get ad-free programs, early programs like this show, which often drops on a Saturday on the Patreon and then on a Monday on the regular feed. So 2 more days, plus tons of great programming, including The Facts Geek Life. It's a show that Peter is one of my many rotating hosts, where we take a classic series, we take a season, handful of episodes, and we break them down and have a good time talking about that. Plus Spin a Rack, a show that Todd and I do together, where we talk about comics and so much more. So $2 a month over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. It's so funny. I can't believe I never thought of this. To quote the Blues Brothers, that's a lot of entertainment for $2. Think about it. And these fine folks get all these great benefits on our besties level. My buddy Derek Trevelyan, the figure dude. Francie, who's my wife's hairdresser, who'll be very excited that we have a new episode of A Bad Trip to the Movies with the Cardens coming out this weekend. She's a fan of that show, so Francie, that one will be dedicated to you. Mr. Xbox Expansion Pass, our friend Luke Lohr, and my awesome Uncle Tim. On the Friends with Benefits level, John Sedorf, the great Phoenix Sisters cosplay, Kelly and Crayley, Brendan Myers, Corey in HD, and Matthew Keel, and these nice folks, without whom there would be not, our Secret Friends Super Squad, the awesome Nias family of the Twin Cities, Sean, Stella, and Henry. We are grateful for all that you do for us. Again, if you are listening here, patreon.com/secretfriendsunite, free 7-day trial, and as little as $2 a month to stick around and hear a lot more great content, which we adore. And I just realized that my camera is dipping. There we go. You didn't need to see that much of me. Sorry about that. That is if you're watching us on YouTube, which you should visit that channel. But anyway, shifting gears to talk about something a little more serious. One of the luminaries of the golden era of Star Trek on the production side has left us, crossed the Rainbow Bridge at the very young age of 86, which is a young age these days. We're talking about Jerry Taylor. Jerry Taylor, who got very big starting in 1990, joining the writing staff of Star Trek: Next Generation. 5 years later, was the co-creator of Star Trek Voyager and modeled a lot of the backstory of Captain Catherine Janeway after her own backstory, being from Indiana, Bloomington specifically, which is south of Indianapolis, where they now have that beautiful statue of Captain Janeway, which I've visited. We visited there last summer when we were passing through. So an incredible lady, as I said, as it says right here, joined the franchise in season 4 of TNG, became the showrunner in the final season, and she got an Emmy nomination for Outstanding Drama Series as part of that team, and co-created Voyager with Berman and Piller, and was the executive producer and showrunner until she retired and handed over to Brandon Braga in season 4. So much great outpouring over social media about her, people that she really helped give her start. Kate Mulgrew gave a nice regard, but the one that I read that really kind of spoke to me, Brian, I'm just kind of scrolling through the Akutas, obviously. Mark Altman, Larry Nemec, who I've met a couple of different times, great guy. But Aaron J. Waltke, who is involved in, I believe he was involved in Prodigy, if I'm not mistaken. But I love this quote. This was from X, which I trust me, I don't mess around with X. I'm on Threads, as you should be as well. And I wish all these people were. Additionally, Jerry Taylor donated her hand-noted Star Trek scripts to Indiana University, where they were free for students to study, including one ambitious fan, me. I learned to write studying her. I wouldn't be here without her. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you for everything. Rest in peace. Pretty powerful stuff. So, Peter, thoughts? Anything I didn't say?
Not really. I mean, you kind of captured most of it.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's kind of
Jerry Taylor was an amazing writer, an amazing producer, director, what have you.
Right.
Most of the stuff that she worked on is just absolutely fantastic.
Right.
A lot of the characters that she was involved in, like, and the novels that she helped write about the backstory of Catherine Janeway are like some of the only books that are technically considered canon.
Correct. She wrote a third Voyager novel, and I'm not remembering. I just read it in notes which one that was, but the two novels you're talking about, Mosaic and Pathways, are on my bookshelf. I don't keep a lot of books on my bookshelf, which is hard to believe when I look at it. But I've read each of those several times, listened to the audiobooks, because for me, as opposed to Star Wars with the post, Disney takeover where all the EU was wiped out, nothing really book-wise in the Star Trek world, I've said this many times, is considered canon. It's pretty much not at all.
Yep.
So even with the modern stuff, even though I've wondered if, because things seem to be a little bit more in alignment between Simon & Schuster, who's a great sponsor of this program. They do actually get me advanced copies of their books, one of which I am reading right now, the Strange New Worlds book, Asylum, which drops November 5th, which I'll be reading, finishing, and talking about at some juncture. I'm wondering if there's a little bit more alignment, if there's more continuity. But anyway, for us classic Trekkers and people who admired the franchise from back in the day and today, it's a very big loss. So our thoughts and hearts go out to her family, including her son Alexander, who was Vorik on Star Trek Enterprise and also had a couple of different guest roles on The Next Generation, including another Vulcan who had a very similar name, Torek. It was Torek and Vorik. You have to imagine they're cousins or they're brothers or something, because it looked like the same guy with slightly different.
He was in the Lower Decks episode, I believe.
He was in the episode called Lower Decks. How ironic. So, it's a great loss. So our thoughts go out to their family. So, all right, moving on to something happier. We are still basking in the glow of New York City Comic-Con, which was last weekend. Every person I talk to or see online says, I can't believe that was only a week ago, because I'm sure it's a whirlwind. It's becoming a bigger show more and more as time goes by. So someday
seems to be getting bigger than the old school Las Vegas Comic-Con, which right. It's closer, but
right. I think are you thinking of San Diego Comic-Con as opposed to
San Diego?
Yes.
That's the one I'm thinking of. San Diego.
Yeah. Because obviously there's a Star Trek Las Vegas show, which again we attended last year, and
but that's not the same as like the convention.
Yeah, I've talked at length that it just didn't. Creation cons in general, like you and I skipped one a couple of weeks ago. We're skipping one this weekend. There's a Battlestar Galactica one that we were planning on for a long time, but I don't want to get into my feelings about Creation Con, but I would love to go to this show. But there was a Star Trek Universe panel. Obviously, that is the branding they're going with, and Starfleet Academy, which I believe is now in production or getting close to. Was renewed
There's
for
a
a second
cast photo,
season.
so they
Yeah.
should have been in production already.
Right. Yes, it does. But it has been renewed for a second season, which is great news. Obviously it's got a cast of fresh-faced people because they can't have people who are older adults playing cadets. That wouldn't make any sense. But, with an incredible cast, including Holly Hunter, Paul Giamatti, and turns out in a recurring guest starring role, Tatiana Maslany, who was absolutely incredible in Orphan Black. Over on AMC a couple of years ago. It was a favorite show of April and myself. I am really killing myself with this camera today. So
good
let me
old school BBC.
Yeah, absolutely. Great
BBC
show.
America, I think.
Correct. Yeah, but I feel like we ended up watching it on AMC, or at least that's where it lives now. That show also spawned a sequel, but a lot of us in genre fare and comic people will know her as the She-Hulk in an absolutely great 6-episode stint, which we got back in 2022. Somewhat divisive. Some people didn't appreciate the humor. I appreciated the hell out of it. We just watched it recently. So I think that's incredibly exciting. We learned a few months ago that Robert Picardo will be returning as the Doctor, the EMH, the original version of himself. And Discovery stars Tig Notaro, Oded Fared, who's Admiral Vance, and Mary Wiseman, Sylvia Tilly. Not one of my favorite characters, but I'm excited about the other two. That's pretty incredible. And again, I've met Robert Picardo several times, and he's super great. So, Peter, where are we landing with Starfleet Academy? Neither you or I were crazy about Discovery. We had our moments. Do you think this is going to be different, even though it's a sequel to that in some ways? Set in the same time frame. Yeah,
it should be different because it's set in the Academy, so it should have a little bit more hope.
Yeah,
a little bit more of a positive spin.
Right. I hope so.
Right. We'll see.
Yeah.
This news weirded me out just a little bit because I'm not ever really all that keen on like, hey, we have a second season. You haven't even released season 1 yet. I get it because these seasons are so dang short. It's basically like, oh yeah, we're gonna make what the equivalent of like 3/4 of a normal season from back in the day. Okay,
right,
all right. So just call it season 1 part 2. Because saying season 2 just seems putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah, true. I can't disagree with that.
It's just one of those like, we don't know if the writing's good. We don't know if the characters are great. Like, are we going to want this to stick around for a season 2, or is this going to be one of those times where like, hey, there's a season 2. Oh, psych! It's not happening because you guys hated season 1.
Yeah,
like what happened with the Acolyte. Like, it's just
right. Very true.
That's why I'm just like, please don't pull Disney's now. Let's not start announcing things before we even know if it's good. It should be good.
Right. Yeah, and the question is, it comes back to kind of the why. Why do they do it this way? You know what I mean? Why doing exactly what you're saying?
I mean, the thing is, like, if you're already like in production, you're like, oh, we're just going to film season 1 and 2 back to back.
Right.
Okay, that's fine, but it seems like a PR move, and it seems like a very strange, like, corpo speak PR move where people haven't learned that this is not the best way to do that.
Right. It's true. It's true. I get it.
I hope it's fine. I'm not saying like this means it's gonna suck. It just seems like a very odd decision.
I hear you. Yeah, I can't disagree.
Happy to see Tatiana Maslany. I think she's great.
She's terrific. Whether she's playing it straight or whether she's playing it fun, she's
got great range, and that's what you see in Orphan Black. You don't see that range as well in She-Hulk. Like, I think the writing missed on that one a bit, especially for her capabilities.
Well, I mean, She-Hulk as a traditional character wasn't always funny, jokey, because she, was part of the Avengers in the 80s and 90s, and then it was really only in the 2000s that the character got to be kind of more of a parody character, a la Deadpool or Squirrel Girl or whatever it is. But that is conversation for another show.
Yeah, that's more a spinner rack or something.
Yeah, exactly correct. So we're looking forward to that. Now, we don't have a date on this, but they're producing it now, and no release date has been announced. Shooting began in August at Pinewood Studios, a la the Star Trek stage, which it was dubbed this summer. In Toronto, no date has been released, but Kurtzman had previously said the show might not arrive till 2026, which I just...
Again, we're announcing things way too early.
Yeah, exactly. So there's going to be a second season of a show that won't be out for 18 months.
Why can't we do like, back in the day where it's like you keep things as secret as you can, and it's like, surprise, we're getting something in a couple months.
Right.
Like,
or a show comes...
really hard to do that with social media and pictures and paparazzi and all that crap. But
and tougher with the streaming model of the way everything works. Yeah.
An effort for surprise would be nice. In terms, like, I understand keeping like stories and stuff secret, but like maybe even just not announcing something until like close to when it comes out.
Yeah.
Like, you can build hype, but sometimes surprise hype is better than the long build up. So
they need now. Oh my goodness. Well, kind of holding on to the last moment, because this is really only just a couple of months down the road. The Section 31 telefilm. Now, this is the first TV movie that Star Trek has ever had. Don't forget going all the way
by budget, I would imagine.
Yeah, I can't imagine you're wrong about that. Now, as far as telefilms go, going all the way back to the 70s when Star Trek was being revived in 1977, 1978. Star Trek Phase 2 was going to be a show. They had also considered TV movies at that time, like, here's An Adventure of the Enterprise, but it's only, 90 minutes long or whatever it is. But since then, it's either been episodic, it's been a film, or it's been the shorts, like the short treks and whatever it is. So this is the first real TV movie that they've moved forward with, starring the absolutely fantastic Philippa Georgiou, the Emperor version, played by Michelle Yeoh, who most people love and revere because she's such a terrific actress, and a cast of some recognizable faces and some maybe not so much. But we're believing it's set in the Lost Era, because one of the characters is Rachel Garrett, who is captain of the Enterprise 1701C, younger in this role than she is in that appearance in the classic TNG episode Yesterday's Enterprise. But we will be getting this on January 24, which is interesting because as far as our schedule goes, we'll wrap up talking about Lower Decks. We're going to do a Lower Decks retrospective the week that follows. We have another random episode we already have planned, and then boom, it'll be this. And then we'll be moving into a new way of doing the random episodes, which will involve letting our patrons do the role and help us pick the episodes together. But we will talk more about that when the time comes. But Peter, I know you've expressed some misgivings about this film. How are you feeling now? I mean, seeing the new art and knowing that when we're going to see it, how is it making you feel?
It's still giving me Suicide Squad vibes.
Yeah.
And I didn't. I think it's the wrong direction.
You think so? What makes it the wrong direction?
Star Trek isn't about that. And to be frank, Section 31 is best in the shadows.
Right.
It's best used as a boogeyman, not the, ooh, we're cool spies and we're doing good things for good people, but we're also stupid antiheroes who things because we're sort of bad. Like if you look at like classic Section 31, like Sloane or Rake in Enterprise,
right?
Like they're just like, they're bad dudes. They're in the shadows. They do schmucky things.
Yep.
And that's all we really know about them. Is it truly an organization? Is it one dude being a douche? Like, leaving Section 31 in the shadows is a better thing because it also allows them to be disavowed.
Right.
Like the way that Section 31 is being Mission Impossible more like, and not like the newer versions, but like where it's still kind of an organization that's kind of in the back, because now the way that they're using Section 31 is like the CIA. And it's like Section 31 is not equivalent to the Obsidian Order or the Tal Shiar because nobody's supposed to know about them because the Federation is goody two shoes, and so you can't have something like that.
It reminds me of from the Brie Larson in the Captain Marvel movie back in 2018 when she quips to Samuel L. Jackson. She says, "So is branding and merchandising how you keep your super secret organization in the shadows?" Yeah,
yeah. When she puts that hat on,
I would counterpoint this to something I say very frequently about comics in the modern day when Oxford and I are talking about either in Spinner Rack or in Secret over on SFU. I'm a huge fan of the 5-part miniseries because here's the thing. If it's great, they make more. If it sucks, you've only invested 5 issues. So here's the thing with this. If it's great, they'll make more. And again, how they determine if it's great or not, I'm sure it has as much to do with the minutes streamed, which is true ratings versus social media buzz versus this versus that.
Yeah.
But if it's terrible, it will go away and just kind of fade into the background. Like they haven't made any more short tracks. So does that mean that people loved them? Did it mean people hate them? Did it mean that it was just kind of
okay and some were really bad? So
exactly. But it's just that they, it was something that they kind of went bing and they tried something short.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm all for them trying new things. It's just, I don't think this is a thing that they should try.
Right. So I'm of a mind of it with you. I think it will come and I think that it will go. But I'm at least interested to see what they do. It would be great if we were blown away surprised and it was something great and different.
I mean,
who's to say?
It maybe, but with all of the redesigns and everything, the problem being set in the movie era, because that's where we are. I mean, Lost era, it's still movie era technology.
Right. Well, yeah, it's not TOS and it's not
get
TNG,
like
exactly.
full redos of all of the stuff that we're going to see in that period.
Right,
and
like they've done with Strange New Worlds, yeah.
And as we know, I don't like redesigning things unless you have to.
Right.
So especially stuff that was made closer to the present because the
like
design
TNG
choices, TNG stuff or
TOS
films,
movies. Yeah, exactly.
Because the design choices and the production quality are high enough that you don't feel the need to generally. Like there's like upscaling or like giving a little bit more detail, but like don't redo the Monster Maroon, please don't.
It terrifies me. Don't
redesign the Excelsior. Like, just don't.
Yeah, the most beloved of Star Trek costuming, the Monster Maroon, that's
why I'm a little leery if we're getting close to Starfleet and we get redesigns of like some of the most iconic stuff in the films. It's like, that's not a good decision.
I know. So we will be having what I'm sure is another very long episode when we talk about that.
Probably mostly hear me complain.
Yeah, following January 24. So hopefully you'll bear with us. I will certainly seek out a guest for that episode, to maybe somebody who loved it to try to offset. And I'm also going to try to snag a guest when we do our Lower Decks wrap up as well, because if you really hate Peter and I's opinions, you're probably not listening anyway. But I think if we just inject a fresh voice here and there, it's probably not a bad thing. So, all right, well, we will find out about that in January. So, all right, well, let's move on to talking about the 5th and most likely final season, because all of the Save Lower Decks hashtags and people signing petitions, sorry, it's not going to save it. People, show's ending has as much to do with, because everything has to end, but has as much to do with, the people liking it and also about people, the people who make it simply moving on in their careers. You have a cast of people who have been,
the whole career wants to do something else.
Exactly. So, but anyway, we have 2 great episodes to talk about. I will admit, I usually watch both of these twice. I didn't get around to doing that this time. That's a shame on me. So, Peter, I might lean. I watched the first episode again just now and about the first 10 minutes of the second one. And I didn't prepare notes, so I'm going to be leaning more heavily on Peter, but certainly a lot of great memorable moments. So, Peter, would you like to kick us off talking about episode 1?
Yeah, all right. We have episode 1, Dos Cerritos. So a spatial anomaly forces the Cerritos crew to face their own faces. Ha, very great.
Ha, hee, hoo, hoo. You better believe it. So, yes, so we do get a great Trek Steady Eddie. We got a couple things. We got a great cold open, which we saw not that long ago.
Yeah.
It took us back to the days of the TNG episode, The Most Toys, which had
come back to that a couple times.
I know. Well, it's so great because it's so of the things in TNG that seem the most dated. That episode, like the costumes and overall kind of stuff, tends to draw back to the, it's the thing that seems the most early 90s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, you see, so we jump in and we see Tendi is still doing the pirate thing. She's got a pirate crew.
She's disguised though, so for
Yes,
theoretically, for the first like 5 minutes, you don't know it's her because she's not green.
Right, exactly. But she has a she does get in good with this pirate, with this collector guy who has the same weird little nose appendage that one of the friends of Kivas Fajo had in that episode. Yep. And you realize that she's still going out and pirating, but she's still a little bit more Starfleet in her pirating. She's not letting her crew kill people because they want to, because that's what pirates do. So that's our cold open. But then we jump back and we see our crew they're on an ongoing mission to shut down spatial rifts. So a very go-to Star Trek-y trend.
We're just kind of cleaning it up, which is pretty funny.
But they're cleaning they're cleaning up one of these and they get sucked into it. And where do they end up?
They end up in a parallel universe where they find a Cerritos that is under the command of
Becky Mariner, Captain Becky Mariner, Becky Freeman. Yeah, exactly.
Freeman. Yeah,
right. Yeah. So
they by her middle name.
They ended up in an alternate reality that was marginally different than their own. And my favorite
has a beard.
Yeah, which is, you know what? That was a great reveal with Boimler having a beard because his beard was also purple. And my assumption was always that he dyed his hair purple. So does he dye? I don't know about you, but have dyeing a beard. Like in times that I've had a goatee, I tried to do it and it just looks kind of silly. But that helps that it's cartoon.
But it takes a lot of effort.
Yeah, I was going to say because purple is not, unless there are evolutionary changes between now and then, it's not a natural hair color.
Maybe his family decided, hey, we grow grapes. We're going to make our kid have purple hair because genetic engineering that is not actually affecting traits. Is that legal in the Federation? Maybe so.
You're really going down a rabbit hole there. I like it.
Why not?
Purple hair rabbit hole. I'm now changing the name of the episode. But yeah, I love that. I love that the uniforms were slightly off color.
They were the live action colors.
Correct. Exactly.
Hysterical.
Yeah. So purple hair rabbit hole. That'll get people's attention.
First things I noticed was like, wait a minute, that's the darker burgundy from when they appeared in Strange New Worlds.
And then you got to see that across the other colors as well. So we get Shax has a big ponytail, Ransom has a mullet, which is an interesting choice, and Billups is King Billups, which means in that episode where his family was trying to trick him into giving up his virginity and taking the title, he did. And so now he wears a cape. But yeah, in this episode, obviously our own Beckett Mariner decided to buckle down a long time ago, and she is now captain of the ship. She's
really strict. Apparently,
she's really strict, and we learned later in the episode that our Captain Freeman suffered a career setback and is at Starbase 80. Oh, I should have been wearing my Starbase 80 t-shirt. That was a loss on my part.
Starbase 80 is a great joke.
It is. It absolutely is. So what it turns out that exactly. So we see a lot of interaction between our Mariner and the other Mariner, and at the end of the day, their Mariner does the classic when you have a twin switcheroo, knock out a lore data thing, knock her out, swap their clothes, says, and it failed. Yes, exactly. He says, I want to go back to being a goofball. So as the Cerritos is finally returning back home, there's things are going to prevail. A mild kerfuffle, where they finally get, she does the switcheroo back and the other Mariner ends up back on their ship, and then for assault, she obviously gets tossed in the brig. So that was pretty cool. And I'm trying to remember, because we kind of bleed into the next episode with Tendy's plot line. Not necessarily.
Tendy's bit is a little different. I just want to quickly mention Rutherford, because this is something that continues into the next episode. Rutherford is having a hard time that Tendy's gone.
Right.
And so you see him like overdoing things. He's not sleeping. Like you see like his uniform has like pit stains. Exactly. Changing. And he tries to learn from Otherford.
Otherford,
Also,
yes. The
who has,
almost
like,
Borgified other version of Rutherford,
who has like
yes.
completely replaced everything with cybernetics
Right.
because his Tendi left, and so he just decided to remove all of his emotions and everything, so he didn't have to deal with it. And our Rutherford is like, wait, that's not. I don't want to do that. That's bad. And then through
Right.
that, he helps Otherford rekindle friendships and everything, which I thought was
Right.
kind of just a nice little
Yeah.
side story.
Oh, I
But
totally agree.
Tendi, we go
Yeah.
back, and the thing that they end up looking for an old advanced Orion ship, so it's like a medical thing, and like they're all surprised. Oh, wait, there's Orion scientists. I think this is a reference to the Strange New Worlds episode. I
Oh,
think,
gotcha. But
because the ship looks very
yeah,
similar.
also
Hilariously, though,
we do get, and this is a toss back to TAS, the
oh
original
my
animated series,
god, I just
Blue
about died
Orions.
when they showed up on the
Blue
screen.
Orions, or as they have dubbed themselves at the end of the episode, they're azure, which is another word for blue, another shade of blue. But yeah,
Orions. It's pronounced Orion, and why is
yeah.
Azure?
Oh my God, so fun! So you do see, and that what a great riff on it. So TAS. The original animated series from the early 1970s. Gene Roddenberry, in retrospect, hated it, said it was non-canon. Various sources have kind of worked it back into canon, and then you see,
Cannibalized into canon.
It's cannibalized canon. That would be a great second choice, but I'm sticking with the blue hair or the purple hair. But yeah, this was a great leap in that direction. The blue and the green,
so funny.
The Orions,
like the yellow eyeballs, the blue skin, the weird shaped heads, the really tacky spandex uniforms.
Oh my God,
it was so and like the really crappy guns. Like it was just really funny. They brought everything back, and you're just
was so very 70s.
If you haven't seen TAS, it's one of those like, okay, these guys are weird, but if you've seen TAS, it's one of those like you roll on the floor.
I know
like, this is so.
And
dumb.
again, we've talked TAS on the show, but it was before Peter came along. Down the road, we're likely to revisit again. So as you continue to listen to our show, you'll get our perspective on it. As we, the purpose of the show is to talk about Star Trek episodes, and so there will come a time that
episodes
that we're going to start over again, and yeah, we'll be talking about all that stuff. So, but that gets us into the second episode. Quick wrap up on this one. This was a 10 out of 10 for me. How awesome.
Was great. It was great.
Absolutely nailed it. So much fun. But in Shades of Green, Tendi races to stop conflict while Boiler and Mariner race to stop Capitalist. So at the end of the episode, what Tendi has done with her conflict, acquiring this ship that she was sent to find, was to spark a war between the Blues and the Greens, the two houses, so her house, and then whatever house was kicked off, the Blue Orions. And so it's going to be settled with a solar sail race through an asteroid, which is also it's shades of the episode of Voyager where they participated in that race. A solar
Prodigy
sailor
did one recently, not the solar sail, but they did a race.
Yeah, the solar sail bit comes from DS9, the episode Explorers.
Which they totally do on the inside of the ship. It's so many references, and it's great.
I know. That's what, and again, I think this episode really typifies something that I say to people who are like, for the longest time, and he's really come around. Todd has said, well, I don't think people could enjoy the show unless you're really steeped in Star Trek. I don't think that's true. I think funny is funny for funny's sake, but you get
a greater appreciation if
you do. You get a little bit more nods and smiles when you kind of you're in on the joke. But if you're outside of the joke, you can still have a lot of fun.
You still laugh because it's stupid.
Because it's a fun show. Absolutely. So Boimler and Mariner are down on this planet where they're converting a society from a very, capitalistic United States kind of deal over to a more Federation moneyless society. And this is going to give us a piece of merch. I'm sure it won't take long. And I know I want one with the no cash shirt, or what did the other shirt say? One of them said no cash. I can't
remember exactly what it said. Let me see if I can find a quick picture of it because it was really funny.
But yeah, so it's just kind of a farcical because at one point, first of all, Boimler is leading an away team, and my original name for working title for the episode was Bointers, because he's taken the word pointers and put his own name in it because he's leading an away team. He's also trying
from the Officer of the Month magazine from the alternate universe that he stole, where Boimler was like the man.
Fleet magazine. I did note, and the Fleet magazine was from the beginning of the first episode, that this establishes now our current year is should be 2385, if I'm not mistaken, or 2382. Excuse me. No, is that right? I guess it is right. Yeah, I guess I thought fifth season and think times was passing in real time, but the beginning of the show was 2380, and now so the 5 seasons are taking place over 2 years. I guess I didn't even really stop to think about that. So yeah, but
that
what
tracks for promotion tracks,
right?
So
What Fleet Magazine shows us is that as of 2382, the Voyager DS9 uniform is still in use. Because as he's flipping through it, the
gray shoulders.
You're still seeing no, not the gray shoulders, the colored shoulders.
Oh, right, the red one, yeah.
Because we know that your style uniform is still in use because you see it back and forth. So I think that's interesting. It doesn't mean that uniform is the longest established one, because the longest established one is the Monster Maroon, starting in Star Trek II, which was 2283, all the way till about 2350, which is just before TNG starts. So, sorry, that's a lot of inside baseball. So I apologize. Yeah, did you find it?
No, there isn't a easy to find picture yet.
Yeah, there will be. But anyway,
I'm
shame
sure
on us. And I'm sorry I didn't take notes. That's on me. But anyway, it's a lot of fun. So they have a very kind of cat and mouse silly chase to rescue 2 of their crew members. Boimler, there was a bit, and this came from a clip that was, I think, from New York Comic Con, when they're going to jump on the little speeder bikes.
Yeah.
He jumps on one, and Mariner says, "I really admire your zeal, but you're totally sitting on that thing backwards." And they get turned around and go through a chase, end up rescuing their people, and people that capture them were capitalists. And there's a great solution that comes in with the fact that back in the Orion plot line, because of Tendi, her house ends up losing the race, and the cost of losing the race was they have to
all their treasure goes away.
All their treasure goes away. But what happens is that Tendi comes back to Starfleet because her sister releases her from their Taunti, their pact. Her sister's pregnant, by the way, which is the big secret that's she's trying to keep throughout the 2 episodes. But when Tendi comes back, she finds out that the capitalist planet, having to give away all their treasure, is, instead of just throwing it back in the recycler, they give it to Tendi's family. Now they're back in the high life again, and everybody's happy. So
and now the Blue Orions are serving them, it seems.
Right. Oh my goodness.
They both lost their money.
Mm-hmm.
So because they both cheated and both did dumb.
Right.
Things.
Exactly. So
the thing they were supposed to retrieve.
Right. So So they had to give their money to the company line. So I know we kind of blurred these together. Anything that we missed?
Not really. I just as a note of taste, I guess, the storyline with Tendi, like, I liked the whole like conflict and everything, but I thought that her trying to protect her sister being pregnant, like mother her pregnant sister, was a little bit overdone.
You think so? Maybe like, so.
I get that it's comedy and it's supposed to be over the top, but it felt just a little bit like, okay,
kind of pushing it too far.
It's a little bit too stereotypy, and it's a little annoying.
It's a little too sitcom-y, because that's
maybe some people find that great. I found that just a little much, but
I hear you.
It's not that big of a deal, but it was it was one of those things that made me like this episode just a little bit less, because it was just like
So that would drop your rating to like a 9 or a 9.5. Sounds like that's fair.
It's still a great episode, but it was just one of those like
it was a good 2-parter, and it employed a classic strategy of you had one through line, and then you had a B and a like B.5 storyline of
we
what was
also
happening.
missed another storyline that I thought was absolutely amazing, which was Majel, not Majel. That's the Prodigy character.
Yeah, I know, which is funny. I thought of her as well.
Yeah, it's T'Lyn.
T'Lyn, who Gabriel Ruiz, who I met on the cruise, and absolutely, she sat down and we had a chat for a bit. Delightful woman. So
so she comes in and she's trying to help Rutherford out, and so she's like, "Well, what if we work on the shuttle together? Because you working on that with Tendi seemed to make you happy." And so Rutherford doesn't really want to work on it, so he comes back in, and T'Lyn is like completely fixed it up. It's like flying. It looks like it's in tip-top shape. He's like, "Oh no, this isn't good, because I was working on that with Tendi, and now we don't have anything else to work on." And T'Lyn is like, "Oh, I thought this was going to help." And then, hilariously, after Tendi gets back, they go, Tendy's like, oh, let's go see how the shuttle's doing. Let's see what we can do. And Rutherford freaks out, like, oh no, it's going to be all fixed. And he walk in, and T'Lyn is just absolutely wrecking this thing. Like, it's so much worse than we saw in episode
But oh
one
no,
of the
yeah,
first
exactly.
season. It's like totally in pieces. And Rutherford is like, he's ecstatic because they get to start over. And you just
Yeah.
see T'Lyn like, I did this so that you would be able to go back to this and be happy. And then he's like, oh, thank you. And she just drops this piece.
Oh my goodness.
The comedy in that scene is really well done. It's
absolutely
really funny.
nailed it. So yeah, I'm probably a 9.5 or 10 on this one. I just, as a two-parter, totally nailed it. Really looking forward to what else is coming up. So, well, good deal. Obviously, Star Trek Lower Decks is available exclusively on Paramount Plus. You probably have it anyway, but if you don't, I'll put in a free plug for Paramount Plus. It's great. You know, you subscribe to Paramount Plus, you also have access to CBS, Comedy Central, VH1 programs, tons of movies. I'm a big fan. So in hearing that Paramount Plus, if you've heard that somehow, we would love some money. So yeah, let's see what you can do about that. But speaking of Paramount Plus, they also have these great episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation as we get into talking about season 6, which starts with a cliffhanger, which we talked about a very long time ago. But anyway, this was the 1992-93 season. As I mentioned, this was my junior year in high school. Peter, you were like 2-ish, maybe 1.5.
Yeah, I was 1 and a couple months when this premiered.
My goodness. That's where you were born in 91. I was 91, in 91. Yep. My gosh. Holy cow, young people. But anyway, so this was, as I had mentioned in the point, in middle of season 5, I became a dedicated taping it on VHS, pausing at the commercials every time kind of weekly viewer. And here in West Michigan, where Peter and I live, WWMT, which is based in Kalamazoo, Michigan, but covers our market, aired it in syndication. And the thing that always drove all of us nuts is that, and I assume it's not this way anymore, but their signal always had a thin band of static that slowly went through the screen 24/7, 365. It was funny because when you fast forward it goes quickly, but it goes at about, if you're seeing me on YouTube, about this speed. So, and plus it was an SD. So when I watch it now on Paramount Plus, it's in gorgeous HD because this is one of the 2 Trek shows that actually got remade into HD before they figured out it wasn't profitable to do it for any of the other 2 shows. Before
they decided to be lame.
Yeah. Lame, so lame. But anyway, yes, this was peak enjoyment for me. And actually, this first episode, I'll jump right in, does guest star Alexander Enberg, Jerry Taylor's son, in his other role where he is playing a period-specific reporter, without really makeup per se, but in period costume. But anyway, the episode I'm talking about is called Time Zero Part 2. The director is Les Landau, with the story by Joe Minowski and teleplay by Jerry Taylor. Probably that's what helped her son get into the episode. Not that I'm saying that Nepo babies aren't a real thing, whatever. You know what? I worked in a family business too. I get it.
It was like 4 lines. Not a big deal.
Yeah, exactly. But it did kick off the episode. September 21 of 92 was the week it aired. The Enterprise crew has followed Data to San Francisco in the 1890s. The crew deals with Samuel Clemens, guest star Jerry Hardin, who we saw in the last episode, and runs into Jack London, who we also saw in the first episode, while trying to find a way to prevent aliens from interfering with 19th century Earth. So I will admit, for all 6 of the episodes that we're talking about, I have a lot of member berries and a lot of rosy colored glasses. But I love this episode in particular for what really got teased in part 1, which was the strong, can't define it, blood, family, love relationship between Picard and Whoopi Goldberg's Guinan, who is present in the past because she lived then, she wasn't visiting, kind of like we see Pelia in Strange New Worlds when they were in present day, when Kirk, alternate Kirk, and why am I drawing a blank? Christina Chong's character ended up in Toronto in, present day. And Pelia was there because she's the Guinan of that of Strange New Worlds. I just got that. I don't know. I never thought about it that way, but it's absolutely a perfect way to think about it. So, this was great. And we get a lot of, this thing happened in the past and they're able to finally stop the aliens because Picard in the past takes Data's head, which is left in this cavern where he gets stranded, and puts in a ones and zeros binary message, which in the present where Data's head is, and Geordi's hooking him back up, Data has a message and knows that you've got to do this and that to not fire torpedoes or whatever. And eventually our people get home, and Jerry Harden is Samuel Clemens ends up where he's supposed to be. But it's cool. The last shot is Guinan, who is injured, is being kind of taken up away by the medical professionals of the time, and Clemens is getting up and looks at his watch and says, "No, I got to leave this here because it was found in the past." But I just thought of something. In part 1, Guinan mentions that the entrance to the tunnel is located in the Presidio on an army base. How do they even get in there? Or were the guys taking her away? Were those army medics? I don't know. It just occurred to me. But then again, you know what else occurs to me? Who cares? It was really great. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. What are your thoughts, Peter?
I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. There's some really funny moments where like Picard is pretending to be a workman fixing up these lights, and it's like, what are you doing? You're prepping them for earthquakes. There's never been an earthquake. And we know that just a few years later, there was the deadliest earthquake in San Francisco in years.
In 1906. So just, 15 years later. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I never made the connection, although we did just watch the classic 1980s vampire movie, The Lost Boys, which is one of April's favorites. And in that movie, the group of teenaged edgy vampires led by Kiefer Sutherland live in what was a hotel that fell into the crevasse when that earthquake happened.
Oh, that's kind of funny.
Yeah, so I thought that was kind of funny in reference to having just seen.
So there's that. There's the hilarious like Irish landlady and
Mr.
Like,
Pickard.
We're a Shakespearean troupe, which is just really funny since it's
very on the nose. Yeah,
it's very on the nose. Like there's a lot of really goofy jokes in here.
Yeah,
and then Samuel Clemens in the future is also really funny because he's like he doesn't understand what's going on, and he has this really funny interaction with Deanna while she's showing him around.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of good stuff in this episode.
Yeah.
So it's good. There's not really much more to say about it other than it's got great character moments and it's really, really well done.
So that scene you mentioned about Troy showing Clemens around is I know one of the things that I think they really nail consistently is that usually because everybody lives on a starship, their skin is kind of pale, right? When Troy has come back from living 3 or 4 weeks, on Earth in San Francisco, she has a nice tan. And I noticed that back in 1992. I thought and again, you think about it because, well, they started filming this in probably July of 92 because they take a little hiatus and they come back and film them and produce them. And so, you know what? Southern California in the summertime, lots of time to get sun. So yeah, that was something weird that I noticed way back when. So good stuff. All right. Well, episode 2 is you.
All right, episode 2, Realm of Fear, directed by Cliff Bull, written by Brandon Braga, aired on September 28th of 92. Barclay, our favorite omniphobe, must overcome his fear of the transporter to solve a mystery.
Yeah.
So basically the idea is the Enterprise has found this ship that's strangely abandoned. It's a science vessel is doing something. Investigating some of the plasma in these 2 stars that are connected.
Yeah.
And
typical Star Trek stuff.
Normal Star Trek science-y stuff. And Barclay sees something in the transporter beam and freaks out. This is like the first time that we see the transporter from someone's perspective.
Right. Yeah. What it looks like.
Really interesting.
Kind of dissolving. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's one of those like, does time pass for you in the transporter beam? Evidently so.
Yeah. Right.
So it's just kind of interesting that way. And we have this whole thing where Barclay is thinking he's going nuts. He thinks he has transporter psychosis. He keeps it to himself for a while, and then it's just he's freaking out, and so he can't. There's lots of really, really hilarious Barclay freaking out.
Right.
Everything moments.
Like, doing his, he's the mod, because again, he has a session with Troy in this, and where he's saying, he's kind of the kind of modern day version of the hypochondriac and WebMD. Gets even worse.
So.
because you can talk to the computer, which you can do now. I just said the word
He asked the
computers.
computer, "What are the symptoms of transporter psychosis?" And he's like, "I have all of those."
I saw my Alexa dot light up when I said the C word. So because that's my, with this episode, it was, it's Barkley is comedic, and it's great that he's used sparingly, because I don't think we've really seen him in full force since the end of season 4. It was the nth degree episode, unless I'm drawing a blank on a 5th season episode he was even in. I'm just not thinking of one.
Yeah, I don't think he was really in much in the 5th season. So, Barkley is best used sparingly. He's a fun character,
right? Like Q. If you saw Q all the time, you'd be like,
Yeah, but if you had Barkley too much, it would just be like, no.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Yeah, I mean, as Barkley episodes go, this one's probably not one of my
out of all
favorites.
The Barkley episodes. This is one of the weaker ones. It's still funny, and the solution where he goes in, they figure out that there is something in the plasma, and then he ends up hugging it, and you find out that it's a person trapped in the matter stream.
And it looks like it's like a big largemouth bass, kind of looks like the Doomsday Machine from the original series.
It's
like
a sandworm from a wreck.
A bugle,
short.
Yeah. It just exactly, but that is I mean, in reference to that, the Star Trekkiness of the solution is terrific. Absolutely love it. They totally nail it. That's very good.
And then they send other people into the matter stream to get everybody else out. So it's a happy ending, and we figure out Barkley's he doesn't actually have transporter psychosis, and it's like, okay, there's no need to be afraid of the transporter,
right?
Or is there?
There's no need to be afraid. Yes, exactly.
But it's just But out of all the Barkley episodes, it's not the best. It's not bad, but out of all,
but it's not
Barkleys,
good.
it's not the best.
I hear you. Well, it's funny. The horn dog in me is kind of fond of this next episode. So, episode 3 is the Man of the People. Winrich Colby, a veteran director, handling those reins. Frank Abate Marco did the writing. Not familiar with his work. Sounds like it could be from the old slush pile. From October of 92, a psychic ambassador uses Deanna's mind to influence the outcome of a mission, endangering her life in the process. It's a weird description. Really what it is this guy's a sort of psychic vampire. What he does, and his name is Alcar, I think it is, and he's played by actor Charles Lucia, who we later see in Voyager as a member of the Trabe, which is that's the species that the Kazon stole all their stuff from, and they're perpetually at war with. And in that episode, Charles Lucia's character tries to set up an assassination and manipulated Janeway into pulling it off, which naturally she figures out at the last moment because she's awesome. But so he comes along. He's got this little. He comes on. He gets rescued from a civilian vessel that's being shot at because Enterprise is on a diplomatic mission in this war torn area, and he beams on board with this old lady who he says is his mother, and she's just like, bleh! And she dies shortly thereafter, and this. Charles Lucia's Alcar says to Troy, "Hey, can we touch crystals?" And it's a ceremony that honors death or whatever. You just know this guy's full of shit. You just get a bad vibe. But what happens is that it hypersexualizes Troy. And she also starts aging, but this doesn't give us the very famous, Riker's walking to her quarters because they got to work on the crew evaluations. And she comes to the door wearing this amazing see-through gown that you can't even believe this was in syndicated TV in the early 90s, because you can absolutely see what you would see through a see-through gown. But as it turns out, she's wearing that because there's some young PYT ensign is in the corner that she gets in the elevator with him prior to the scene, and she's just staring at him, and he's like, but he still goes back home with her. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. In so much the fact that it's not terrible. But anyway, things change very quickly for Troy. She does show up in 10 Forward wearing a really slinky dress, but her hair is turned gray. And it's really dramatic because Riker walks her back to her quarters, and then she's kissing him, and she scratches his face. So she's just your kind of typical crazy cat lady, or I don't know, this terrible expression used. I don't know how you describe it. I don't want to say she's mentally ill because I wouldn't want to alienate anybody who has those kinds of problems, but she's clearly under the influence of crystals, which I know are very big these days. But it's really shocking how between the commercial break when Riker runs away from her, and then in the next episode, you see her back in uniform, but her back's to the camera, and Alcar comes calling, and now she's a withered old lady. which is weird. It's really weird to think about the fact, because this was over 30 years ago. If you look at Marina Sirtis's old age makeup, which is kind of funny, they do a nice CGI recompositing at the end of the episode when she de-ages. They do it in a kind of cool way. But if you look at Marina now, or even Marina in season 3 of Picard, with 30 years gone by, I don't think they exactly got it, because it's 90s quality old age makeup, for TV.
Most times old age makeup doesn't really work that well
in
terms of accurately predicting.
Yeah.
I think that now they could, because they could use like an AI to like take a look and be like,
well, they absolutely do, like they've done in the Marvel movies. I mean, look at the fantastic Haley Atwell, how they aged up Peggy Carter. She appeared in Ant-Man, and then she appeared in kind of your standard old age makeup in Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Yeah, they've gotten better, but it's still one of those, like, very rarely does the old age makeup actually represent what you're going to look like. Like, it works for the story, but.
Right. Exactly correct. So, but anyway, I like this. And again, very Star Trek-y premise. You've got a psychic vampire alien thing, and he's, trying to take a chunk out of one of the members of our crew, and, everybody works together, and ultimately he's defeated, and everything goes back to normal. So,
I keep getting this one mixed up with the other one where she gets, the son of the ambassador, who starts using her as a deposit for all of his negative emotions, because it's a very similar premise. Which
one? Well, that is what happens in this episode. What's the other one you're thinking of?
Is this isn't the same one?
What one? You got me stumped.
The one where he's depositing his bad.
That's what he's
like
doing.
Season 3.
Oh, it's the price where he's like, no, he uses his.
Not the price. It's not the price.
You got me stumped.
Dang it! I know this one. It's gonna bother me.
Oh no! Well, if he doesn't come up with it, maybe one of our listeners will hit us up on socials and let us know.
Yeah.
But anyway, I loved it. It was very Star Trek-y, and Marina Sirtis is hot as hell in this episode.
Violations. That one.
Oh, it's season 5. Yeah, it was. Yeah, the guy, they used the memory retrieval, but this guy was kind of a psychic rapist.
Yeah, it's violations. So it just reminded me of that one, and so I just kind of don't. It's not my favorite because of that.
Yeah,
I like, as interesting as it is, I don't necessarily like how sometimes Deanna is always taking it. Like, it makes sense because she's the telepath on the ship.
Yeah.
Empath technically, but it's like, how it's used in Nemesis isn't great, how it's used in Violations isn't great, and how it's used in here is so I'm not always these episodes aren't my favorite. It's good acting, it's great acting,
totally,
but they just aren't my favorite because of the content.
I gotcha. Fair. I gotcha.
But if you like it, great. It's just one of those, like, it's a little iffy.
All right, well, you got a winner next, so you're up. Big special sweep, almost sweep episode.
Episode 4, Relics, directed by Alexander Singer, written by Ronald D. Moore. Aired on October 12th of 92. The Enterprise investigates a vessel that has crashed on the surface of a Dyson sphere 75 years ago. A pattern is found in the transporter buffer that turns out to be Montgomery Scott. He is released from the buffer, shenanigans ensue, and later they become... Geordi and he become the only ones to save the Enterprise. Guests are...
love it.
No surprise, James Doohan.
No kidding, him. And he passed away. Did he pass away in the I think about
early 2000s?
Yeah,
like
so this
2004, 2005.
About a decade before he passed. So, wow. This was the third appearance of a TOS actor in TNG. Obviously, we got the late DeForest Kelley. They did a cameo in the pilot, who was of normal age. We had the great Spock 2-parter in season 5, which of course he was at normal age for a Vulcan. Yeah. And then we had this. So this was a cheat because we got to see Scotty at basically the same age that he was when, and this did come out before,
a couple years before Generation. So it's
exactly.
You sometimes have to go like, he looks a little younger than the canonical last time we see him, but it's fine.
Correct. And one unavoidable, because this was 2 years before Generation, one unavoidable gaffe is that when Geordi and Riker and Worf beam onto the ship and then release him from the transporter, he says, well, I'm Commander Riker from the Enterprise. And Scotty goes, the Enterprise? I bet Jim Kirk got the old gal out of mothballs to save me herself. Well, Scotty was present when Kirk was lost to the Nexus in Star Trek Generations, but that hadn't been written yet. So,
we'll just say it's transporter mind befuddlement.
He had a stray neuron or lepton out of place. So you just gotta kind of let that one go. But yeah, Scotty immediately becomes, the grandpa of the Enterprise D. He's bugging everybody. He's telling that poor young ensign that story where he's like, these quarters are so big that you've given me. I remember the hotel room back when he's like, I got to get back to work, dude. So sorry. He's very polite. At least you appreciate that. But yeah, at one point he for real gets on Geordi's last nerve, talking shit and telling him how to do his job. Did you know your dilithium crystals are about to fray? It's like when he was like Grandpa Simpson. There's one episode of the Simpsons where the grandpa gets up and he starts beating on the television. He said, I want to watch the other show. And he breaks it. And therefore the Simpsons get to go out and buy a new TV. But yeah, they could have gotten a new Enterprise if Scotty broke it. But yeah, great line was with, starship captains are like children. They want it done their way and they want it right away. And Scotty says the trick is to give them what they need. That's good parenting too. But that's why Scotty was such a miracle worker, as was pointed out in Star Trek 3 when Kirk says,
"How long is it really going to take you?"
Yeah,
3 hours. No.
Yeah, exactly. An hour. Yeah, exactly. So compared to Unifications, which at the time I did, because I'm like, well, that was amazing and it was a 2-parter and it had a lot more scope than depth, where this was just kind of like a problem of the week. It's a bottle
episode.
Yeah, it was a bottle in essence, even though they did build the bridge of the Janolan, the little shuttle. The Janolan, by the way, the only Eagle Moss ship that I wanted that I never found when they canceled the line.
Oh, it's around. I found it.
Yeah, well, when next time you find it, let me know, because I want to add that. Because now Fan Home is starting the lineup again, and I am subscribed, which means I got to make some room on my shelf upstairs in the curio, which means you'll start seeing some of those down here.
If you look up toynk.com,
okay,
or like a replacement for ThinkGeek.
Oh, nice.
They still have a whole bunch of that stuff still floating.
Well, I've seen it around, just haven't seen them. We'll talk about that offline, because I definitely love to get my hands on that one. But comparing it to Unification, I was kind of like, well, this isn't as good. But there are a lot of great moments.
This one does a lot of good character exploration of Scotty himself.
Right.
And Geordi. So this is basically a Geordi episode, but with Scotty. Yeah. And so it's really good in that regard.
But a rare Geordi episode where he doesn't find some way to screw things up with a woman, because those are or get tortured, because those are usual
that's
Geordi
usually
episodes.
How it ends. It's not quite O'Brien must suffer levels, but it's close.
Yeah, it's not far off. He's had plenty, but
there's also it also brings in like a gag that shows up, I think, in Lower Decks and a couple other places, where it's like Data gives Scotty a drink, and it's like, what is it? It is green.
Right, which of course came from an episode of TOS. With that, was it by any other name? You had those 3 aliens that grab the Enterprise, want to fly it to the center of the universe, but they find out that even though they're somewhat
where Scotty
susceptible,
gets drunk,
to human cleavages. So he gets the one guy drunk, and Scotty says it is green.
It is green. So it's a reference back to a TOS episode, which because we're in later TNG, that's okay to happen, because early TNG they wouldn't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Did not want it, which also leads us to one of my favorite moments, where Scotty walks up to the holodeck. It's like, I want to see the bridge of the Enterprise,
and he bumps his drink. Bumps his drink against the thing, like no bloody A, B, C, or D.
And then it opens up, and as a side production note, the shot that we see of him entering the bridge is from. It's from a TOS episode where Kirk actually enters the bridge.
I think it wasn't it the one with it was the planet that was.
It's the one where he's on the overcrowded planet.
Yeah, and they need something in his blood.
Yeah, the name is escaping me.
I'll bet it's in the show notes.
I'm sure.
But regardless,
but yeah, so they did that. They didn't rebuild the bridge of the Enterprise. They used, it wasn't quite. They basically used green screen to get it to work, and this
side of paradise.
This side of paradise, yep. So, but this was what I think part of what gave them the idea of doing it for the Deep Space Nine 50th anniversary,
Right. Yeah, because
25th anniversary episode.
Because they built just a
Because they built just a section of the bridge,
Yeah.
but the one that it had to interact with. But it's really interesting how you have like this really cool scene between Picard and Scotty, where it feels very much like the the passing of the torch, turning of the century idea that we get in old like Navy movies, where you have a character reminiscing of like, oh, I felt the wind on my face, and you could hear when the ship sped up, or you could do this, you could do that. And so it's like, it was just interesting having Scotty talk about, I could feel how fast you're going by the vibration of the deck plates and all of this.
Right.
So it's just a really, really cool scene between him and Picard. But it's also a moment where Scotty like learns, maybe I shouldn't be so hard on these new people, these young bucks and this young engineer.
Yeah.
Of note, because I can't not say this, it is the TOS bridge. So canonically, that's what it looks like.
Right. Yeah. You can't turn back the clock on this one. There's a fair amount of this, and that you just got to kind of find ways to suspend your disbelief.
No, this is how it looks like. This is what it looks like.
No, that's it.
You can there's some interesting thought experiments you can do to explain why it looks like what it does. And I enjoy that sort of thing. It's called world building. It's great.
I understand. Good deal. So yes. All right. Well, let's move it on. Anyway, great episode. Very pivotal.
Oh, it's a fantastic episode.
It's good for ways because it's completely different than Unification. So comparing them, thinking about it more so is somewhat superfluous because it's not the same kind of message as the very heavy Unification. I understand that the Dyson Sphere part of it, which gets barely touched on here, does get revisited in a non-canonical novel, which I have not read, which I believe is just called Dyson Sphere. So I would be curious, again, listeners, if let's say you've read that book, hit us up on Peter's having a sneeze, but I'm glad he paused. Thank you very much. Hit us up on socials at Secret Friends Unite on Threads. Or over on our Discord. I'd love to hear what that book was like. All right, episode 5 is Schisms. Robert Weimer does the directing. A story by Jean-Louise Matthias and Ron Wilkerson, not names I necessarily recognize. Teleplay by Brandon Braga from October of 92. Several members of the crew are abducted and experimented on in their sleep, including Riker, Worf, LaForge, Data, and a woman who says, "Yes, it was cold. Yes, it was something."
She has like 3 lines on the hallway.
That one extra who is a civilian, which we don't often have a civilian character who lives on the Enterprise who's really involved in a lot of stuff besides like Guinan or Keiko. But it was funny because I remember my high school friend Lorelai, who was also a fan of TNG and watched it every week. This was an episode that was something we spoofed about this episode when we chatted. The one was like, "Yes, cold." Yeah, and then the whole episode where they're summing it up. Oh, but anyway, everyone is sleep deprived. So they're sleep deprived because, as it turns out, the Enterprise and their regular comings and goings has gotten into this part of space where they're scanning something with a different kind of scanner that is poking these weird crab-like aliens that live on a different plane of dimension who go full, Whitney Schreiber's Communion on them and start abducting them. Unfortunately, nobody gets anything put up their butt that we saw, and hopefully that
one guy does die.
Yeah, one guy does die. Yeah, so they're kidnapping people while they're sleeping. So you just wake up, feeling like you had a shitty night's sleep. They even abduct Data at one point, and somehow in checking, he's gone for 90 minutes, but he doesn't register that he disappeared. Because it happens as Geordi starts having problems with his visor, so he and Data are working together in a cargo bay. He goes and has a scene with Beverly in sickbay, comes back, and Data doesn't know that time has passed. But this was a kind of a weird one. It is famous for a very awkward scene right at the end where they figure out that Riker can, they can use a blah, blah, blah pulse to shut down the aliens' like ability to pull them into the realm. But he goes to sleep in his clothes and he has a tricorder and I think he has phaser, so he's like ready for an away mission, but it looks like he's sleeping. But a portal opens up and kind of sucks him off his bed, and you see him very awkwardly flying this like woo into this like space hole, and then he's he's strapped.
Funky.
It's very funky, and it does have a kind of a weird scene on the holodeck where Troy's running like a group therapy session, which they do it in the conference room for starters, which I'm like, why wouldn't they just have it in her office? But it's Worf, Geordi, Riker, and then again the civilian woman who says yes, cold, are all describing like vague notions of like, this is what the table looked like, and it had like an armature over it,
looks like,
and it had a attachment. Their descriptions are weird, like it has a swing arm, and then it materials a swing arm, but then like some weird panel behind it. So it's like there's a lot of stuff in this episode that just doesn't really click for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's memorable because it's memorable because it's not good, I guess is the best way to describe it.
The idea of the Soligan-based life forms are interesting.
Yeah.
But it's one of those like, I'm okay that we never saw them again.
Well, they couldn't even exist in our space-time continuum.
They can't exist in our space, which always makes it funky that we are able to exist in theirs.
Yeah, exactly.
Extra like force fields or everything, which we don't see.
Well, we don't see, but I mean, the little space could have been like a oxygen bubble somewhere,
like pocket, but like,
right?
Are they wearing something that lets them survive? It didn't look like it. Like, so it's just.
Oh, right. No, I get you. Yeah. So that it's not touched upon. So, it obviously wasn't interesting enough for them to keep it going by having them return and so on. And just like I said, they're just lobster things where they got like the big claws, and they're literally just bipedal lobsters, which. You know what? Good for them. This was before the time of like Doug Jones's Saru, where they really did something fancy with the makeup. But and most aliens just had an extra divots around their temples or something. So this was at least a different type of alien design. I'll give it points for that. But the episode, I just didn't really care for it.
No, it's not my favorite. In concept, it's interesting of aliens living in another dimension that come and attack you, which Voyager does better with Species 8472.
Oh, totally. But years later, when they can really build something in CGI,
stuff.
Yeah.
So, but outside of that, it's okay, but it's not like super memorable. It's memorable because it's bad,
right?
But it's not.
Most episodes are memorable for one of those two reasons.
The one thing I can say about it is you will remember that you saw it.
Yes. Remember that one with the lobster people, and Riker has his like woo.
That's chair.
Remember the chair?
Scene, it was cold.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that.
Yes, cold.
It's not good.
All right, well, take us home with number 6, please.
All right, episode 6, True Q. So we have another recurring character that is used sparingly, properly. So we have directed by Robert Shearer, written by Renee Echeverria. Aired October 26th of 92. Q reveals a secret about a young woman from Kansas who is visiting the Enterprise.
Superman.
She is Q.
I just made that connection. I just made the Kansas connection, like Superman, another alien, which we're watching. Side plug, we're watching the current season of Superman and Lois, which is on the CW, just started up again. And they're doing the Death of Superman arc, but they're doing it in a way that I think is kind of different. So plug. Total sidebar. I would tune in if I were you. Available for free on the CW app if you're a cord cutter like we are.
Nice.
But I digress. Olivia Dabo or Diabo, who is she's a Brit, which I never realized because her real claim to fame is she was the sister on The Wonder Years, which I don't know if that's a show you've ever dug into much. It's a very big one for us Gen X kids because it portrayed someone of our age that grew up in the late 1960s into the early 70s, and it was the thing that launched. Gonna draw a blank on his name. You know him because he's in stuff. Why can't I remember?
I haven't seen it, so I can't help.
I'm gonna look it up. But anyway, and this is the only this episode then followed by another appearance is the only season of the show where we get 2 Q episodes. No, I take that back. We had 2 Q episodes in season 1, and we have 2 here, but there was none in season 5. He took season 5 off.
Season 5 was the only time Q didn't appear.
the star was Fred Savage was the star of the Wonder Years.
Fred
Oh my God.
Savage. Okay.
There you go. So at least you know him.
Princess Bride.
Well, there you go. Well, that was that aired at that movie came out at the same time that was airing. But anyway, back to you, please.
All right. So we have this young, basically prodigy coming to the Enterprise, trying to decide what she wants to do. Going to start, like, am I going to go to Starfleet Academy? What am I going to study? What am I going to do? All this. So she's shadowing people on the Enterprise, basically. But she's so amazing, and everyone can't like get over that. And then we come to find out Q shows up, which makes everyone all sorts of excited. Everyone.
Oh, absolutely.
And he comes to tell everybody, it's like, oh yeah, she's a Q, and I'm just going to take her back to the collective. And Picard, argues with him. It's like, no, it has to be her decision. You can't just take her and all of that. And it ends up with Q doing some pretty shady shit to try to convince her, because he's just Q.
Yeah, precisely.
It does have a really cool scene that I've recreated a couple times with another program, but like where he takes her out onto the star drive section of the ship.
Right. They're
watching the stars go by.
They're standing on the back wings, basically.
They're standing on the nacelle struts.
Yeah.
Which is just really, we see that shot as the camera all the time, but seeing people on it, you kind of get an idea of the scale of how big the ship
just
is.
how friggin' big the Enterprise D is.
It's just really cool. And so the program back in a couple years ago called Stage 9, it was fan produced. Unfortunately got shut down. Thanks. But you could take a shuttlecraft out onto the exterior of the ship, and because damage wasn't put in because it was in beta, you could just open the shuttle and stand on the wings of the ship, and it was just really cool. So you could recreate that scene yourself.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's one of it's just. Is it a really important shot? No, but it was just really cool. It always stands out to me whenever that comes on screen.
Yeah.
So
awesome. Good deal. There was also a fun shot where Q is arguing with Dr. Crusher, and he just wipes his fingers, and she turns into an Irish setter barking at him. And then Amanda turns him back, and she says, "And you stay out of mine." So she never knew. And Q is like, I completely agree with you. That was great.
Yeah, that was our classic Q being a turd, and it was
And
fantastic.
I think he also remarks about her, if it's not this episode, it was definitely this episode, I think, because Crusher becomes more shrill with every passing year.
He does say that. Yep. That is this episode.
Oh my God. I love it. I absolutely love it. So,
but ultimately he does end up convincing her to go with Q.
Yeah. Yeah, because our B story is Enterprise is affecting affording some assistance to this planet that's completely poisoned its environment. And it comes to a moment where the planet is about to, the atmosphere is going to explode. And she has said to Q, she says, I will give up my, she says, I want to have a normal life. And Q says, well, you can only do that if you give up your powers or you don't use them. Yeah. And while that doesn't happen at that moment, she says, well, I just won't use them. She immediately uses her powers to save this planet. So she says, all right, fine. I'll go off and I'll join the Continuum. And I guess this is just what I'm supposed to do. And is never heard from again. She could have, shown up in Voyager. That would have been great.
That's a character that I think they should revisit somehow. Yeah. In either Lower Decks, which you never know.
Yeah, it's easiest to do, or in a future animated program, or just showing up,
like you can change. Yeah. Like maybe Miss DeVoe would come back. I don't know.
You're right, and she could simply alter her appearance in the same fashion that we saw Q do in season 2 of Picard.
Or you could just have a totally different actress player.
Right.
There's got to be a lookalike or look similar around.
Look similar. Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, it was. I thought it was a fun episode, and it was good. It was good delving into the Q. I think the next time we really get a good kind of Q dig is in this, or a kind of dig into the Continuum and the intricacies of is in Voyager, in the Death Wish episode. Which Riker is a central character in that one as well. Because naturally, Amanda falls in love with Commander Riker because. Apparently, who wouldn't? Any woman coming out of the Enterprise is like, "Ooh, Riker, his beard, blah blah blah," and but she learns a lot about you can't use your powers to make people fall in love with you. That's a big no-no. But I enjoyed this episode. I thought this was
a good one. I think it's great.
Absolutely. All right, let's do some quickie rankings. Let's go with the favorite and a least favorite of this crop. What's number one for you?
Number one is probably going to be Relics.
Yeah.
I just love that episode.
I'm with you. It's a classic. It fits into a lot of those, top 10, top 25 episodes of the series without a doubt. Probably top 10, I would say.
Yeah, it's just a good episode.
Yeah, it's good. It's fun. Good character moments for both the guest star, which is Jimmy Doohan as Scotty, and then for Geordi, and even really for Picard.
Those are the three characters that really get some good hits, and the scenes that they do, those development moments, are just really well written.
Absolutely. All right, what's a stinker for you?
See, that's the problem.
I know, because there's a couple of ones that I think kind of suck.
There's a couple that I just don't like. I think I'm gonna go with Man of the People.
Okay.
Because I don't tend to like those kinds of stories. As dumb and weird as Sisms is, it's just like out there weird sci-fi weirdness.
Yeah.
Whereas Man of the People is just like a guy being a douchebag and destroying Tim's mind yet again, and I'm just like,
It's kind of like Geordi getting tortured. You can't get tired of. It's another episode where it's like the O'Brien episodes where it's like, oh, let's torture O'Brien and
it's like
make him
it's
think
well
he was
acted,
in jail.
It's well
or
done, but I just it's not my favorite.
That's fair. I am kind of torn because while Schisms doesn't do it for me, I kind of get a chuckle out of it because of the cold. But Realm of Fear, I couldn't. I even remember this when I was watching it. I just couldn't get interested. You know what I mean? I couldn't get invested in the plot. Barclay. Again, he's better in small doses, but even in the doses you get, you want him to be doing something interesting or funny, and this was kind of neither.
No.
So that's kind of where
he wasn't
that
doing
lands.
Things that were zany enough. This was like psychotic.
Yeah, it was like, oh, I'm having a bit of a problem and blah, blah, blah. So this and that. All right. Well, that's a wrap for this go round. A couple of notes, housekeeping before we leave. The mailbag is again opened up at Secret Friends Unite. At gmail.com. Tell us what you think about this episode. Answer the questions of any things that we're like, what about? I can't remember. Drop us a line. That is unless, of course, you're already on our Discord. But yeah, drop us a note over at the mailbag, and we will potentially read that on the show. We haven't got one in a while, so it'd be very exciting to get one. Again, that's Secret Friends Unite at gmail.com. And as mentioned, our Discord is where all of the chat is happening. It's where you're going to find news. That's where you can jump in to talk about the thing that you're enjoying most in the geek world. Secret Friends Unite over on Discord. Find us there. Peter, where do people find you?
You can find me around the interwebs at Petrus Aquinas. I'm not terribly active, but if you poke me, I might say something. You can find me primarily on the Discords of both Grand Petoskey, United Trekkers of Michigan, and Secret Friends Unite. Again, I'm not all over the place, but I'm there.
He's there.
And you can also find me on ELH's Twitch and YouTube channels, where I'm playing a Cardassian science officer in a Star Trek Adventures game. And you can find me behind the scenes at Starship Excelsior.
Fantastic. I am also on those Discord channels, the three that Peter mentioned, fun places to talk about Star Trek and other stuff. You can also find me over on Threads and Instagram at the C3, TheCeeThree. I'm usually just posting pictures of cats and my wife and I going for nature hikes. And sometimes I'm, sharing my non-controversial political views, making fun of certain politicians, which is my God-given right as an American. And I'll stand by it just because I do it for fun for the most part. But at any rate, friends, thank you as always for joining us. I want to tell you that sharing is caring and to keep on trekking.
Peace and long life.
Nanu, nanu.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.